Hello, my name is Moses Ajayi. In this presentation, I'm going to be covering change of subject of a formula. And at the end of the presentation, you should be able to rearrange the formula. And looking at the change of subject of a formula as a topic, there are two common scenarios. And the very first one is when the subject appears once, and then the second scenario will be when the subject appears more than once. Sometimes you can have the subject in 2 or 3 places. I'm going to explain this later on. Now, let's look at when the subject is appearing once. Now, if you have Q equals MC T2 minus T1. Now, here our Q is the subject of the formula, and this is defined as the quantity of heat supply or removed from material such as food. And our M is the mass of material, our C is the specific heat capacity of the material, and our T2 is the final temperature, and our T1 is the initial temperature. Now let's assume that we want to make T1 the subject of the formula. In this scenario, T1 is appearing once. We can see from this formula that our T1 is appearing once. So this scenario is having the first one where our subject is appearing once. Now we want to make T2 the subject of the formula. What we are trying to say in essence is that we want to change the position, we want to rearrange this formula in such a way that our T1 will be occupying the position of Q. We want to make T1 the subject of the formula. So there are some steps we need to understand, there are some things we need to do. So I'm going to illustrate, I'm going to do that using this very particular example. Now to make T1 the subject of the formula, let's look at how we're going to solve this. Now you can see our T1 is hidden somewhere here. So we need to get rid of this bracket sign in a way that will make our T1 to be free, and then we'll be able to transfer our T1 to the subject position. Now let's look at how we're going to do this. So we expand the expression on the right hand side. In order to free our T, we want to expand the expression on the right hand side. So we multiply out. So we have MCT2 minus MCT1. So because this is a multiplication sign, so MC will multiply T2, so we have MCT2, and MC will multiply minus T1, so we have minus MCT1. So we can see that our T1 is a bit free, but not totally free. We have M and C still attached, they are still attached to T1. So we will look at how do we get rid of them. So the very first thing, the next thing we need to do, maybe we can transfer this to the other side of the equation and transfer Q to this side of this equation. Transfer MCT1 to the left hand side while we transfer Q to the right hand side. Let's look at what we'll do. So we move MCT1 to the left hand side of the equation, so of the equality sign. So what do? We have MCT1, because it's negative at this end. By the time this negative sign, MCT1, by the time it crosses the equality sign, it turns to positive. So that is why we have MCT1 plus MCT1. So because it's crossing the equality sign. Now another way of looking at this is this. Now this is minus. So if we had MCT1 to both sides, we could say, oh, let's get rid of this at this end. So what we could do is to add MCT1 to both sides. If we had MC, add it to this side and add it to left hand side as well. So what will happen is that MCT1 that we've added to this side, we cancel out MCT1, we cancel out the negative MCT1. So we'll be left with MCT1 that we've added to this side. So the one we've added to this side, it has only disappeared because there's a negative sign MCT1 before, so that will cross it out. But the one here is there to stay because there's no negative MCT1 at the left hand side. That is why we have MCT1 here. So we have Q plus MCT1. Or you could simply use the simple method I've used by saying, okay, when you transfer a positive number across a negative and across the equality sign, it turns to negative, and when you transfer a negative number over equality sign, it turns to positive, as we have it here now. So now what we want to do now, because we are interested in making T1 the subject of the formula, not Q. So we need to get rid of Q and MC, but we need to do it in order. Now, if you look at this, is like in the reverse of BODMAS. Now, if you look at this is attached to T1 by positive sign. M and C are attached to T1 by multiplication sign. So we can see that the bond between MC and T1 are stronger than the one T1 has with Q. So the very first element that will leave this side will be Q. because it's been attached to MCT1 by positive sign. So like a reverse side of like a reversal of our Boltzmann. So what we'll do now is to say take away Q from both sides. If you take away Q from both sides, so if you have minus Q on the right hand side as well, so that minus Q will cancel out this. So we'll be left with minus Q on this side of the equation. Now, or you can simply say move Q to the right side of the equation. So, or subtract Q from both sides. So if you move Q to the right hand side of the equation, because Q is crossing the equality sign here, now and here we can see that our Q is positive, so our Q will now be negative at the other hand of the on the other side of the equation. So we have this. Now we've been able to remove Q. Now we want to get rid of M and C. Now you can see that M and C are attached themselves by multiplication. If you want to get rid of them, all we need to do is to divide. If we divide both sides by MC, so we'll be able to get rid of the MC on the left hand side of the equation, so that our T can be alone. So we could see from here, MC, we are dividing both sides. Please take note of something. If you are doing something to left hand side of the equation, ensure you do the same thing to the right hand side of the equation. So anything you are doing, like for example, like what I said here, so it appears that we are moving Q. I'm going back now. It appears that we are moving Q from here to here. What we're actually doing is to subtract Q from both sides. If you take away Q from this side and take away Q from this side, you take away Q from this side, take away Q from this side. I mean, if you take away Q from here, let me see if I can get my pen. If you take away Q from this side, and you also take away Q from this side, so what will happen here will be this Q will cancel out this Q. Q minus Q will be 0, so we'll be left with MCT2 minus Q. So whatever we do to the left hand side of the equation, we are doing it to the right hand side of the equation. That is what we've just done. So please take note of that. That is just what we've done. So I want you to take note of that. So another thing we want to look at now is to go and see what we'll have here. So we are dividing both sides by MC. So we've divided. Now once we've divided both sides by MC, the MC here will cancel MC here, and this one will be left there. Or you can simply break them into two. MC will cancel this MC, and you will be having minus Q over MC, because these two elements Q and MC2 are joined together by negative sign. So they can simply have MC as a whole, as we have them, or you separate them and they have in their individual MC. So that is that. So we have T1, because MC here will cancel MC here. So we have T1 equals MCT2 minus Q divided by MC. So that's our Q1. That's our T1. So we've been able to make T1 as the subject of the formula. We've been able to rearrange the formula in a way that our T1 is now the subject of the formula. Before, we started with Q as the subject of the formula. Now, we have T1 as the subject of the formula. Let's look at another example. Now, this is x equals d over t. Here, our x is the subject of the formula. Now, we want to make t the subject of the formula. Now, what we need to do, because we want to make t the subject of the formula, t here is in the denominator position, so we want to make sure that it's in the numerator position. We want to rearrange it in a way that t will be standing alone. So the very first thing we want to do is multiply both sides by t. If you multiply both sides by t, like I said, don't forget, whatever we do to the right hand side, we do it to the left hand side. Now look at something that has happened here. We've tried to, because we want to make t the subject of the formula, so we've multiplied both sides by t. So this is s multiplied by t. Here, s is here, multiplied by t, and d over t is here, multiplied by t. Interchanging it is not really a problem. We are saying 2 equals 2 or 2 equals 2. It doesn't really matter. We can mention one first. So d over t multiplied by t, and x multiplied by t. So we have, now here our t will cancel t. So we are left with d at that end equals st. So, but now we are looking for t, not st. So we divide both sides by x. So when you divide both sides by s, d over x equals st over s. Here, s will cancel s. So we'll be left with d over x equals t. Now, we want to put our subject to the left. So our subject is something we want to mention first. So rather than saying d over s equals t, this is not a problem, this is correct, but it's always good to make your subject to the left. So we are saying t equals d over x. So d over s equals t, or t equals d over s. But don't forget, we prefer to have our subject to the left, just like we have it here. Our x is the subject of the formula here. Now we are making t the subject of the formula by following those steps. And another example is this particular one. Y here is the subject of the formula. Now let's look at the question. We want to make x the subject of the formula. So we could see our x is here. So we want to get rid of c, because c we want to get rid of c and m. But what we could get rid of first is c, because you can see that the bond between m and c is weaker compared to the bond between m and x. So here is multiplication sign joining m and s together, but now here we have positive sign. So we want to get rid of c first. So we subtract c from both sides. When you take away c from both sides, so we have y minus c, and then equals ms plus c minus c. C minus c equals 0. That is why we don't have anything here again. So that c has disappeared. Or you can simply say you move this c over to the left-hand side of the equation. So because it's positive c, when it crosses the equality sign, it's turned to negative sign. So that is what we've done here. So there are several ways you could solve mathematical problem. All you just need to know is which one is best for you. Identify which one is best for you and apply it. So subtract c from both sides. Yes, it's working for me. Y minus c equals ms plus c minus c. So c minus c will be 0. So that's why we have y minus c equals mx. So because we are interested in making x the subject of the formula, what we now need to do now is to divide both sides by m. We want to get rid of m. So when you divide both sides by m, you have y minus c divided by m equals ms divided by m. Now m has cancelled m, so we've omitted a step, which is not really a problem. This is supposed to be ms divided by m, so m will cancel m. So it's supposed to be, somebody will say, oh Moses, why are you writing it? It should be this. So somebody will say, sorry about this. Let me just use cleaner. So this should be this. Let's look at that again. So this should be, somebody will say, oh, this should be mx divided by m. So yes, so and this m, we cancel out this m. That is why you have your x. So don't forget that. That's why we have our x there. So that is that's one example. That's why you have our s there. So another thing we want to do is to look at the next once we've done that, is make your subject to be to the left. So always put your subject to the left. Then you have x equals y minus c divided by m. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to contact me. So we go to the next one. Now this is still talking about when subject appear once. So we have v equals 1 over 3 pi r square h. Now our v is the subject of the formula. We want to make our r the subject of the formula. So what we want to do is to make r the subject of the formula. We want to try and make sure that everything is simplified. Try to eliminate anything that is having if you have denominator problem like this 3, we want to get rid of this 3 so that we can simply get rid of get rid of every other thing attaching themselves to r. So the very first thing we want to get rid of first is 3. So multiply both sides by 3. When we multiply both sides by 3, v multiplied by 3, 1 over 3 pi r square h multiplied by 3. Yes, some people will prefer this. Yes, we repeat everything that we have there. We multiply by 3. Here, this 3 here will cancel this 3. So we have 3v equals pi r square h. So now the next thing we want to get rid of is pi and h. Like I said, it's reversing the BODMAS. Because here we have 3 things are disturbing r. One is pi, second one is square, another one is h. So we want to get rid of pi and h first before we can get rid of power. Because square is of higher hierarchy. When you remember your BODMAS, your square is of square. The power is of higher hierarchy compared to multiplication. So you want to get rid of pi and h first. So what we need to do is to divide both sides by pi h. So when you divide both sides by pi h, so you have 3v divided by pi h, pi r squared h divided by pi h. Then you will have what we have. We have 3v over pi h equals r squared. Now the next thing we want to do, because the interest is not r squared. Our interest is to make r the subject of look at the question. Say make r the subject of the formula. So our interest is to make r the subject of the formula. So what we need to do now to find r, we need to find the square root of both sides. When you find the square root of both sides, then you have 3v over pi h square root. Then square root of r squared is r. Then subject to the left, our r equals square root of 3v pi h divided by pi h. So here we've been able to make r the subject of the formula. We started with v as the subject of the formula. So looking at when subject appeared twice. Now let's look at this. We want to make a the subject of the formula. Now we can see a is appearing here, a is appearing here. So all we need to do to solve this problem is to bring together every element containing a. So bring them together. Now all elements containing a are on the same side of the equality sign. Now how do we do that? Now we could see 7a is here, so we want to transfer 7a to this side. We can simply say, because this is negative 7a, we can simply say add 7a to both sides, like what we have here. So when you add 7a to both sides, what will happen will be tya plus 7a equals t minus 7a plus 7a. So I've only repeated the previous equation. This is what we have there before. Then t minus 7a, then we will have added 7a to this side, added 7a to this side. Minus 7a plus 7a will be 0. So we left with t on the right hand side of the equation. So we've been able to bring all elements containing a together. So all we now need to do is to factor out a, bring a out. So when you factor out a, so you'll be left with ty plus 7 equals t. So what we now need to do is to divide both sides by ty plus 7. When you divide both sides by ty plus 7 here, ty plus 7 here, ty plus 7 is also here as well. So here is going to cancel. So when this one cancel out, so we left with a and t divided by ty plus 7. So our a now is the subject of the formula. We started with this, and now we have our a to be the subject of the formula. So that concludes rearranging formula and changing this, or simply say changing the subject of the formula. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to contact me. This is my email address. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.